My dad always said your name is everything, and make sure that it sounds like a silly piece of advice, but it's so true because when you're in the mining business and you're in investment circles, there's a lot of characters that you run across, and your ethical your ethical strength gets tested along the way, I guess.
This is the Wealth Holders Podcast. If you want a better grasp on your future, join us on our journey from saver to wealth holder. We talk about investing, economics, and having the right mindset to help you feel confident about your finances. Here's your host, Canadian Kyle.
Hey guys, it's Canadian Kyle here at the Wealth Holders Podcast, and today I'm joined with Denis Laviolette. He's the president of GoldSpot Discoveries Corp, ticker symbol SPOT on the Toronto Stock Exchange and SPOFF on the OTC market. Denis, how are you doing today, and where are you calling in from?
Pretty well, Kyle. I'm calling in from Oakville, my basement.
There you go,
Ontario,
not too
yeah.
shabby. I've been to Oakville once. It's a pretty nice little city out on the outskirts of the GTA. Denis, I want to start off this interview by asking what I ask every guest, and that is, what were you doing when you were my age? I'm 25, so what were you doing from 20 to 25 years old?
So 25, I'm just trying to remember exactly where I was. 25, I would have been in, oh my gosh, I think it was Ghana. I want to say Ghana. Anyway, I was working, I was in a bit of a cluster because basically at 20, so 21, I would have been in Kirkland Lake at Kirkland Lake Gold. I was still doing co-op stuff at that age, and then so I would have been it would have been my first kind of rodeo out in Ghana. I was doing alluvial mining, gold mining.
Okay, what's alluvial? Sorry,
Alluvial is like placer gold mining, which is basically like what you see on Gold Rush, Alaska. So you're mining basically placer deposits or gravel deposits with gold and for gold in this case and diamonds, and you process it through gravity means. So trommels and sluice boxes and jigs and Nelson concentrators and these things that basically separate heavy media separation devices, which basically would separate the denser or heavier specific gravity stuff from the lighter stuff, and eventually you just get it down to a level where you can pan it out clean, and then you melt your gold bars, or you melt your gold down into gold bars, and then you sell it, and then that gives you some fuel money to keep the fire burning and keep going. So that's what I was doing.
Right on. And that was your own company at the time, was it?
No, actually, it's funny. I was working for a fellow by the name of Danny Dadgis, and Danny had this mine in Ghana. He was a friend of my uncle's, and my uncle, I went to his house at Christmas time, and he said, "Oh, I have a friend that has a gold mine." And Danny's an automotive tycoon. He's got automotive dealerships up and down the East Coast of the United States. And I happened to get in touch with him, and he said, "Yeah, like I've got this mine in Africa." And then I got in touch with the guys that were running it, and sure enough, I went out there and started to cut my teeth into that. But it was absolutely wild experience, and I ended up getting 10% of the company after a while, and then we ended up selling the company, and then I sort of parlayed that into the next venture.
Any cool stories you could share from Ghana back when you were a young man? Any
Geez,
exciting
yeah,
fun
I've
ones?
got 1,000 of them, 1,000 war stories. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty neat. We one time, let me think of a good one. So we ran out of ore. So this was pretty crazy. It was the torrential rain season, and we had run out of basically ore in the main area that we were mining in. And what that meant is we were starting to dig up gravel that just basically didn't have anything in it, and the overburden was getting really, really thick. So it was getting deeper and deeper, this gravel layer. It was like 7 meters thick, which was a lot. You have to move 7 meters of red dirt, just to get down to essentially this meter to 2 meter thick gravel bed that had gold in it. And it was getting a little bit costly, and it was starting to come up with really fine grained crappy gold. And so I had this area that I was interested in, and we needed to make money. Like it was touch and go for a while. And there was this area on the other side of the river that we needed to get to, and we had these big trucks, articulated dumpers, these big Volvos and excavators and such. And so I knew of this juicy spot on the other side of the river, and I was looking to make some fast money with that. Unfortunately, with winter or with rain season, when it's rain season in Africa, it's really nasty, and mud ruts, basically you could stand in them. That's how deep the mud would be with the trucks. And so we're amidst this river. So we built the bridge over the river Kwai, we called it. And it was basically, we didn't have any culvert material or anything to really fancy build up a bridge. So what we did was we took these shipping containers and we reinforced them with steel pipe and Vitalik pipe, and which is expensive stuff. I mean, you don't use this stuff to line containers so that they're structurally sound and capable for trucks to drive over them. But it wasn't a big river. It was kind of like a tributary to the river.
Right.
And so we had put these big, massive containers in to allow for the water to flow through them. We got a permit to do that. And then we basically dropped them in, drove the trucks across and into this thing. And then I remember we were making so much gold. We were making something like, 60 or 70 ounces a day, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it was a lot. Yeah. And all of a sudden, the rains picked up huge, and our little makeshift bridge was totally flooded over. And we basically had all of our equipment locked onto the other side of this creek thing. And it was insane. And anyway, but we managed to figure it all out. We got a better system in place, and
shipping containers.
Yeah, that happened. I bet you the same age as you are right now. That was the type of craziness we were dealing with.
Very cool. Well, people joined in for us to talk about GoldSpot, so I guess we better get to her. Thanks for sharing that, though, Dennis. And I really want to understand the origins of GoldSpot and your role in it, because I listened in a recent interview and you said it was from Integra Gold Rush Challenge, right? And it was the data miners. So I looked into them further, and they were the only team that was all students, right? And then there was teams with seasoned mining professionals on it, and they ended up getting second place. But you weren't a part of that team, were you, Dennis? So why don't you go ahead and talk about how GoldSpot came to be, and where did you come into the picture?
Right. So when the Integra launched the challenge, I launched a Hero X as well to participate in the challenge. So I wanted the data to play with it, and I just didn't have the time. I was really busy with it, and I came across some of the other groups that had submitted, and I did see Vincent and his team with the data miners, and I looked a little bit. They had a website at the time. It was like a landing page, and they talked about data science and stuff, and I was really interested in that. But when we found out, because I was, I forget how I got involved with getting into the actual show at the time. But anyway, I was there, and I remember seeing who were sort of the finalists in it and stuff. And this really sparked an interest in me to go there. And I met with Vincent and the team at the time, and with CJ. So basically CJ and I were there. And so we met and then so Vincent presented on stage, and it just really was awesome. And we thought, okay, wow. And actually there was SGS, which also presented machine learning driven targeting as well, which they ended up taking first place. But SGS is a multinational, a huge company, and here's this group of students. And so that sort of sparked it. And I thought it's really interesting. It's definitely the way of the future in terms of exploration. And then I was driving for Newfound Gold. We have the property up in Kirkland Lake at the time, as well as Newfoundland. And I was actually on the road driving, and this had been in my mind about Vincent and the team and what was going on. And I was thinking of a business plan. How could we weaponize this? And I got a kind of an idea of well, if it works on a local scale, it has to work on a regional scale. So we should do something on a regional scale for all of Quebec or a province with all of the public data. And that really sort of sparked, that was the first kind of big idea with it. It doesn't sound like that big of an idea or that big of a stretch, but it was at the time. And I was sort of wow, maybe that'll work on that. And then I got back and I was calling CJ and Colin actually, and I was telling them about how I had this idea and how like I was convinced that this was, you know, where to go, and we got to do something with this, and yada yada yada. And then CJ went ahead and booked us plane tickets to Quebec City, and Vincent and the team were there at the Institute of National Research in Quebec City, and we lined up some meetings and a dinner, and we went up there and spent a couple of days up there with them to learn a little bit more about everything and talk through some of our ideas and stuff. And that's when I realized, like, you know, in that sort of path, thinking about all the different ways we could sort of monetize it and leverage this technology to build a valuable business in this space. And so, yeah, that was basically the inception point right there.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So now I want to get into what GoldSpot is, and I think the best way I can do this is by asking this question. So GoldSpot has multiple streams of income. As of today, what is the most profitable source of income, and how do you see that changing as the company matures, say 3 to 5 years down the line?
Okay. The most profitable source of income from us by a margin is really the junior companies. So the deal structure that we do with them, whereby we invest in them, we get a large amount of capital back through a service contract, in addition to getting oftentimes equity and a royalty. And the beauty about that model is it can't exist without a strong standalone cash for service side also, where we just strictly service like major clients for straight up cash. So that helps a lot with making this work. But basically, the reason it works is because we don't really need to touch that war chest of equity that we get from them, and the revenue that we generate on the other side helps to offset our G&A and makes everything a little bit more affordable from the corporate overheads perspective for this to work. But the reason it's so valuable is that, you know, we tend to make like the break even on a deal like that. We could sustain basically a 50% loss in a company that we had invested in with our current deal structure, and still break even on the deal.
Right.
But we gain the optionality of, appreciating gold prices. And so we built this in a bear market. This is a bear market model. And so as it transitions into a public market, it's pretty lucrative. And that's why you see our investment basket growing from, originally, under $7 million to today, which is, close to 30. So it's a big lift, and that's because we can afford to build it and keep it like that. If we were pressured, the nice thing is of having the other appendage, which is the service side, straight up service side for cash, is that sort of end allows for us to not have to liquidate those holdings and turn that equity over to pay our bills.
Right.
And it's only because of that we're able to just continue to accrue and bolt onto that basket and diversify it, so that from time to time when we do have to start to pull capital out of there, we can do it and spread it across of multiple issuers, so that we're not taking an individually large chunk out of anybody to fill in the potholes in our operation from month to month, say. So let's say we're running with like a $200,000 or $150,000 cash deficiency in that particular month. We've got now like 25 deals that we can pull $150,000 off of. So spread that around 25 deals, and it's, a nominal amount that doesn't impact in a negative way the share price of the issuer that we're, that are really our partners.
Right.
And so from our perspective, for that model to work, you have to have another injection of capital from a straight cash service. So it works because of that. It wouldn't work just by itself. I think it could work and could sustain the business just by itself, but it benefits dramatically from having the other side, because you can build diversity in the basket. If we were pressured to turn it over because of the liquidity of these deals, you would effectively crush the share price of these companies if you wanted to slip out of them.
All right, right. I was going to ask you about, yeah, because one source of income is the field experts in the contracting you're doing, and I was wondering how do you leverage that? But that makes sense. That injection of capital just helps you
Pay the
not
bills.
have to pull from your, yeah, exactly, pay bills. Does it provide any other leverage? Like you get boots on the ground. Does that help with what you're going to pick for your investments and stuff?
Well, totally. So a couple of things. So the overall, like, it wouldn't influence the investment portfolio at all. So like none of our technical team has any access to the investment portfolio management side. So there's basically a wall of separation there. So there's no, because we're privy to information on one side that the market's not, but the divestitures are kind of more formula driven than anything. So it's not, and it's that person and people that have trading authority are isolated from the technical side. So no, it doesn't, having people on boots on the ground doesn't influence the investment side, which is, you slip that in there ever so slightly. But where I was going with it is, or I think what was the question again? Sorry, sir.
How does it affect your decisions in the investment process? But I didn't know that. Like I thought, if they were on the ground, you would know, hey, this is a good potential property that we could invest in, and we want a royalty from it. Because I'm trying to understand why someone would want a royalty or cash, and not just a cash deal with you.
Yeah, well, because most of them can't afford it. I mean, if you're a big company, you wouldn't want to be giving us a royalty. First of all, you probably have an operating mine or some sort of, and you have a treasury that can stomach paying us a service fee straight out of your pocket. If you're a junior company, which is a little more cash starved, and, two things, the junior needs desperately to stand out from the rest of the pack. Right. So having, being able to work with us and put their best foot forward technically, promotionally, etc., is advantageous. Secondly, they can preserve their capital and spend it in the ground rather than spending it on like a diverse staff base. And then then that's the other kind of crux of it too, is that, you end up with junior companies can't afford to have in-house geophysicists and geochemists and structural experts and things like that. So, they can afford to have a VP of exploration and maybe a couple of project geologists, but on contract, but full-time employees not in the cards. So with us to kind of get a turnkey big team that can eat, breathe, and sleep their information. But I think the point I was thinking of when you were originally asking the question was, which is an interesting one, for the big companies and sort of the value that we get out of that. All of these deals that we do, whether they be service contracts for big companies or whether they be work with junior companies, it's all improving our R&D. I mean, it's all R&D. Like whether it's, everything is a laboratory. So a big company's paying us to R&D our tech. Small companies are paying us to R&D our tech. I mean, everything gets better all the time. And so that's, at our root, at our core, we are a technology company. It's just we've come up with this creative way to pay for it.
Yeah, for sure. And what's your reputation like in the industry so far? Like, are you having to knock on a lot of doors, or a lot of people coming to you for your consultant service?
Almost entirely everybody comes to us. So it's nice. We were lucky enough that from the start, I think the phone started to ring early. Like Eric and Greg Gibson came to us with Jarrett Canyon, which recently sold to First Majestic for like $700 million. So that was our first project ever. And because we were working on that project, word of mouth got around, and we ended up getting into another couple of projects. The interesting thing that happened shortly after that, though, is that Hochschild Mining gave us a call. So they just looked us up from the competition. Ramon Barua, who's the CFO, but sort of a CEO in many ways, and Ignacio. They're really out of the box thinkers, those guys, and I remember Ramon phoned me up out of the blue. I saw this Peruvian phone number and I picked up the phone, And he said, it's Ramon Brua from Hochschild, and I'm looking at this AI for mining, and I see that, you're the phone number. Can you tell me a little bit about this? And we want to use you guys in Peru. And of course, I knew who Hochschild was. I knew Hochschild had, was a multi-billion-dollar company with assets all over Latin America. And so, I explained it to him, and he said, okay, well, when can we start? And so really quickly, it was awesome because we didn't have a lot of red tape with that deal. We got into it, got working on it. It all came together quite quickly. And then we worked on our first project for them, which was awesome. It was really challenging, but it was an awesome experience. And then they turned around and took they gave us a second project. And then after that, they turned around and took a strategic investment in us, as did Eric. And kind of having them both in as early investors and previously to that clients, that really helped us. And I was a bit of a prolific networker in this space anyways, as well as Colin was, as well as CJ and some of our investors. So it really helped to get the message out there. And then all of a sudden the phone started ringing with people that wanted to give us a shot.
Okay. So where does GoldSpot really shine then with you've dealt with huge companies and you've dealt with small companies with greenfield and brownfield projects, right? Is it where does the technology really benefit your partners?
It's really interesting. Again, a tough question because it's on both ends of the spectrum. We've added tremendous value to clients with tons of data, like really ripe with data, and then we've also added tons of value to clients that didn't have very much data. So, I mean, I think
through different technology that you guys possess, or
yeah, just a different approach. I mean, it's just leveraging what is available in the data space, and then coming up with a plan. I mean, one of the more obvious examples of this would be Newfound Gold, right? Like, I mean, that's probably our biggest success case ever came from Newfound Gold. But when GoldSpot was involved in Newfound Gold wasn't Newfound Gold. It was an idea, And so, and then we came into this district that didn't have a lot of data. And you could recognize it on a very big scale. You look at a provincial type scale and you could see, a cluster of geological features that culminate to leading to suggesting that there should be something big there, and it maybe not highlighting exactly where to stick the drill per se initially, but giving you some really good ideas as to what you should look for and what you should pay attention to, and then that leads to more things. And I think there's value on both sides. So there's also value in very data rich environments where we're able to sort of pinpoint different features and things and extrapolate different ideas. There's also times where we come into a project without very much data, and this is getting back to what I was explaining initially, is that you come into a project that is quite green fields, but there's actually a lot of data, they just don't know about it. And then so a big role that GoldSpot plays in that case is basically like this, data research group where we're pulling out public files and, whether it be from the inventories of the government geological survey or whatever. And all of a sudden here we are digging up archives of information, maybe from neighboring properties, maybe from that specific property or that region, and stitching it all together. And then the insights that come out of that add a lot of value to that play. So yeah, I mean, there's value on all kind of sides of this. So I would say with GoldSpot, it's most definitely both.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. Now, where do you get your data from? Is it just all like you acquired a lot from Quebec? Didn't you acquire like all the data within that province? Like, have you got it from other provinces, or is it just on the region? Like, I'm just trying to understand where you get all this data from.
So we get a lot of data from the company itself. So if we work with a company, a client, they will give us the data that they have, and then we go and scour for additional data. There's many sources of data. There's governments that have data. It depends where you are in the utility of this, but there's also like satellite companies, for instance. Okay. You can get multispectral data in Arizona. If you're in Nevada, if you're in an arid environment with little vegetative cover, then it would make sense to lean into multispectral hyperspectral data sets, which are available for purchase and also free from Aster satellite, or for purchase with, say, the Gold Eye satellite and things like that. So there's different sources of data that we can pull from to supplement what's already there. If we look at regional exploration and what we've done, let's say in BC with Golden Planet and putting that deal together, or initially what we did with Quebec, that's all pulled from government stuff, and it still needs to be cleaned. It needs to be fixed. Like it doesn't come out nice. It needs a tremendous amount of hard work to clean it all up and homogenize rock codes and fix problems in the data sets and things, and errors, and different rocks being called different names on different maps, and that needs to be rectified and things like that. So there's quite a bit of cleaning that needs to go in, but it depends on where we are and what the job is.
Okay, thank you for that. So we talked a lot about you utilizing your technology to help your partners, but you're also saying that you're a tech company and an AI company. How are you making profit off that, other than just with your direct sources? Why don't you go ahead and talk about any profitable technology? Are you doing any subscription services yet or anything like that?
No, but that's the game plan right now. So right now I can talk to one of them specifically. We've got a few things going on, but this entire time we've been R&Ding, developing things. I think we've spent over $17 million directly in R&D for some of these technologies that I'm about to talk to. Mm-hmm. But basically, internally, what we've been doing is using our very specific tools that we've developed and things that we've developed for the clients that we have. We haven't broadened and opened up those tools to the broader market. That's the pivot point that we'd like to hit this year, which is really to take a couple of those things that really would be tremendous and I think sought after in the broader market space, that people would want to have access to utilize themselves and pay us a licensing fee for a copy of. So one of those things that we've talked about is, or that we like to talk about recently, is litholens. So the interesting about a couple stats on litholens, I'll just pull them up here. Sure. I know you can't see my screen, but it's helpful for me. So we've analyzed over 2,500,000 meters of core with litholens, and it's generated over $1.5 million in services related to the platform. So those are both pretty big numbers since inception. And this is just, again, a skunkworks project in GoldSpot that is now basically ready for the big stage. A couple of interesting points. So basically what litholens is we can look at core photos. So when you drill a hole, you take a photograph of a core box, and it basically takes those core photographs and it can relog core. So it can basically pick out geological features based on the photograph. And it's deep learning. It's like image recognition type of deep learning type stuff. So basically, there's a lot of different, whether it be textures, alteration products, whatever, but the real secret sauce is in actually being able to consistently, in different lighting environments, in different vintages of photographs and things like this, being able to sort of homogenize all of these things, color treat them, level them out, so that you can actually start to interrogate those photograph data sets to a level where you can actually start to relog and pull out all the quartz veins, let's say. So we've got it to the point where we can pull out structures, we can pull out faults, fractures, veins, alteration types, rock types, all this kind of fun stuff. And that's going to save the industry millions of dollars, because right now we're spending over $50 million a year in our industry, specifically just in logging core. This is the human capital that is required to log core that gets drilled in various mine sites. And it's inconsistent. You get like 10 humans logging core in one core shack, and basically one guy's calling a rock X and another guy's calling that exact same rock Y, and it doesn't come down. It doesn't it's not until the time where you go to pull it all in together in a 3D model, and somebody's sitting there trying to link stuff up, like this rock type, trying to model it out. and in 3D space trying to link up all
Right.
these different lithological units or features, that all of a sudden they recognize, oh well, wait, there's a mistake on this one, somebody missed it, or we have to pull that box out and relook at it again, or we have to, so there's all this relogging that goes on as well, which adds up to millions of dollars in the industry, over 500 by our estimates. And so we think that with our software, we can basically solve all of that. We've got a way to consistently log core faster, more accurately, more consistently, and pull out a lot more detail and features than even a human would be able to do. And in fact, there's geotechnical and safety applications to this too, faults, fractures, things like that. You want to be able to look at all of your core information when you're mine planning for your engineering department to decide, what type of ground support to use, things like that. So, having a good, accurate representation of what is in those drill holes, whether it be from the rock types and the alteration types to structure, faults, fractures, broken rock, all that fun stuff. Getting an idea of all of that and having a system in place that can consistently pick that stuff out. And again, it's not completely unsupervised. You can have a human being there, you take a picture of a core box, and automatically suggests what you should call everything. And, you can tune it up if you want as a human, and it just gets smarter over time. So this will really be the future of logging core. And, the beauty of it is we can do like 200,000 photos in 20 minutes if we wanted to. So, it's if a human were to relog 200,000 boxes of core, they'd be there for 2 years.
Right.
So right now, that's the only other alternative. So I'd be pretty hard pressed to think that once we get, a nice slick GUI that works smoothly and gives everybody that great user experience that they expect for something that they pay for, once we get that built, the engine, the back end of it, and the software internally that worked for us, it just needs to be basically prettied up and then made available to the general public. So that's something that we'd like to generate SaaS revenue from.
For sure. I see what you're saying. I was looking at your website too, and one that I thought was interesting was what was it called? The outcrop technology, outcrop detector technology. Do you get that a lot for greenfield exploration? Like that's where I see it as being
all the time
beneficial. Yeah,
that's a super cool one, because so people sometimes think with GoldSpot, like, oh, you're going to take all the data, we click a button, we come up with targets. It's like, that's part of it, sort of, but there's super value in like litholens. There's super value in, say outcrop detector. So how outcrop detector was started was pretty simple. We had a project that was basically really tough bush. It was a really tough place to work. It had poor access. We were sending field geologists to site, and we had a shorter window because they were on a limited budget of how many days we could be out there. So we really wanted to get the most out of every single day. And so what we did was we took all of the satellite photos and we created an outcrop detector. We basically trained off of some outcrops that we could visually see, and by the road and things like that were apparent in the photograph, and we let it loose to automatically go and pick out all the other outcrops on the project, and it was really amazing. And so this was like an iterative thing. It would get smarter and better and blah blah blah, and then basically we ended up with this very awesome kind of refined outcrop map, right? And it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking about helicopters and people and things, you want your people to be able to see something when they get in the field, to see actual rock, and to be able to take measurements and samples and all that fun stuff. So it allowed for us to plan a really precise and salient field trip, basically for 5 days or 7 days or whatever it was. We could plan our traverses each day and get the absolute most out of each and every day. And so, that same piece of tech has come, a long way, because we can use it for things like masking. We can take away for all the vegetation and things like that, and look at multispectral and see if there's any differences, things like that on projects that maybe you don't really need it for the outcrop aspect of it, but you maybe want to just use it to strip away the types of areas that are contaminating the picture. So
right.
There's that's a really cool piece of tech that I think everyone will use. I mean, we're not going to charge a fortune for that, but it's something that
That could be a
and
subscription service as well.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? A little tool that you can download for,
Yeah.
$5 in your app store or something. And, so, and maybe you care if you're in other industries. Maybe you want an outcrop acid detector if you're in the power line business or something, and it's helpful for you. And it doesn't have to be outcrops. It can be anything. It can be roads, it can be trails, it can be lots of things, right? So it's just the idea of taking satellite photography and training off of various features and then searching for more of those features.
So GoldSpot, they contract their work and their field experts and utilize their technology from all this research and development they're doing in the field. They come up with a good product, and then they could monetize it and sell it. On top of that, you also have an investment portfolio. Now, with this investment portfolio, I kind of want to dive into it more. How do you it's not like you have a bunch of ETFs. You have this this portfolio of extractive or exploration companies, sorry. And I guess I'm getting at is newfound gold. Like, it's a large percentage of your portfolio. And how do you know when to divest from it? And
No, it is. Newfound gold's been a tremendous investment. I think you have to ask yourself at some juncture, where's the best place for that money to be?
yeah,
Is it better to be in our checking account, or is it better to be at work for us and what could be the most exciting discovery? Again, I'm biased. I'm a co-founder of both companies.
right.
GoldSpot and Newfound Gold were essentially one company in the beginning. So many people don't know that GoldSpot was spun out of Newfound Gold.
Okay.
Obviously we have a lot, and we have a royalty on the assets and things. And so, from our perspective, I mean, it just depends. Like, if we need the capital at some juncture to do something better than where that money's sitting right now, then we'll certainly do that, right? As we need it. So until we have a better home for that money, it's in a pretty good place where it is.
And would a better home be with GoldSpot? I saw you guys have issued something about 5% share buyback within the next 12 months. Is that a consideration? I'm wondering, you had a good run in GoldSpot too. Do you still view yourself as undervalued, that buying shares back is a good use of capital?
Yes. I mean, well, no. I think that having such a facility in place is good. It's always good to have, because you never know when you're going to need it, and under what pretense, right?
Sure.
Like,
Yep.
you need to use something like that. So it's a good facility to have no matter what. And you'll see a lot of companies with them. But in our case, yeah, certainly when we kickstarted that process to get that in place, we were trading around 40 cents, so about half of what we were today. So there's definitely a price where it makes sense and a price where it doesn't make sense. And I would say that right now, there is better ways for us to use our cash than to be spending it buying back our own shares. That all being said, I mean, we may need to use that depending on the types of things that come up in the future.
Are you thinking of uplisting at all?
No, but we've got the we're going to stay on the V. We're looking at the OTCQX, I believe, and so that should be coming out pretty shortly.
Okay. Thanks, Dennis. Cleared up quite a bit for me here. I'm sorry I butchered that question. I didn't know how I was going to word that, but
no, it's okay. It's a tough question.
Yeah, because divesting, because you kind of made sense of it right at the beginning of the podcast when you're talking about you can tap a little bit here and there from all your different investments.
Sure.
Do you ever reinvest or no?
Yeah, we do all the time. Yeah,
Okay.
I would say that we usually, when we reinvest, though, it's under the pretense of a re-up of the deal. So we usually would revisit, like they would have another private placement capital raising event, and then we would participate akin to maybe not the same amount that we did the first time, but we would top it up, because from time to time, what ends up happening is these issuers end up with credits, for GoldSpot's work, because we invest our money, we take a chunk of it back through a service agreement, usually paid up front, and then they would, so they have prepaid geological services from GoldSpot, and then they draw down on that over time. So oftentimes what ends up happening is that certain issuers, really like it and they want more. They've used a lot of their credit, so to speak, and they want to get more in the door. And for them, it's just absolutely great. Actually, in most cases, it comes up in subsequent races where it's like, can you guys come back in again? So it's a nice sticky rate to have with people.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Dennis. I know we're running short on time here, so I think we better get into the vault. It's a recurring segment. It's not available on YouTube until I get my subscriber count up, but it's just 3 mentorship-like questions, and this is one of the favorite parts of the interviews. I love doing this, so let's get into the vault. In the vault, just 3 questions. And then, like I said, more mentorship-like questions. So the first one is what you learned from your parents at a young age that has stuck with you to today.
My dad always said your name is everything, and make sure that it sounds like a silly piece of advice, but it's so true, because when you're in the mining business and you're in investment circles, there's a lot of characters that you run across, and your ethical strength gets tested along the way, I guess, if your ethics get tested along the way. And so, you're only as good as your name. And my dad used to always say that, your name is everything, and make sure that you keep that in a good place. And so that, I think that's paid off, just to have that sobering thought all the time that, my name. And, you can interpret that a variety of ways, but I think, and in almost in every interpretation of that, it's true. Whether it be, your name is everything and it motivates you to make your name better and to get your name, to proliferate your name in the space, or whether it means that you want to, preserve your reputation and don't do anything that would give you a bad name.
Some great advice. Second question. We are the Wealth Holders podcast, so I like asking if you could name one wealth holder or high net worth individual, and if you don't want to disclose their name, you don't have to. But what did they teach you throughout your career, or maybe even just life advice that this wealth holder has taught you?
So I go back to Danny Dadgis, which I think was awesome. And my late uncle, man, both of them are awesome. So I'll give you a little bit of both. So my uncle had like a grade 5 education. He's passed away now, and he built this massive lumber company in the United States, in Vermont, New Hampshire. And he was a very, very successful man, and he did it just on hard work. And he was very spry, very knowledgeable person, very good businessman, just really just a natural, smart person, and hardworking. And he always said, and this is sort of a bizarre French translation, but he always said, good paper makes good friends in business. And that was so important, because like I've remembered that all the time. I've gotten burned on it before, where you make like a deal with somebody and it's a promise, it's in a handshake, and then it never. It's always good paper. Make sure if you're gonna do anything business wise with anybody, make sure you have good paper. As CJ says, it's the same as like good fences make good neighbors. Yeah, in a way, it's the same expression. So, and then the other one was Danny. And it was funny because we had done this alluvial mine in Ghana, and we had sold it. And I was interested in this hard rock play, which turned out to be Extra Gold, which I'm still a director of today. And that's where it sort of spawned into. And with Danny, he said to me, I remember having this moment after the sale, and and we were trying to work something out with Extra, and it wasn't going. And then I wanted to get involved. And anyway, long and short of it, I kind of had a moment where I was like, I don't know about this mining business anymore. Like the alluvial mining literally took a piece of my soul. It was like the most intensive experience I've ever been through. Just everything, emotionally, physically, the whole thing was a nightmare. And super high ups and super low downs. But I think at one point I went, man, I just want to own an automotive dealership. And I was like, Danny, listen, if I started like an automotive thing, like a budget car rental, there's one for sale near the airport. And I think that's a killer business. And he said, oh, those are terrible. That's a terrible business. You never want to own any of those. And then he said, Denny, what are you doing? What are you talking about? Do what you know. You know mining, you know geology. That's what you know. Do what you know. Don't do it. Like I'll invest in you all day long. He says, but I'll invest in you if you know what you're doing. I'm not going to invest in you to run I can do that myself. Like I don't need you to run an automotive thing. I can get anybody to do that. He's like, you know mining, you know this mining stuff. That's something you know. So do that. And he's like, look, I've experimented in mining. It didn't work out so well. I've experimented in other things and jets and alpaca manure and all this kind of weird stuff. And he's like, at the end of the day, I make more money selling cars and doing this automotive. That's what I know. And so that helped a lot, because oftentimes you get tempted into, looking at other sectors and other things and other, maybe even commodity types or whatever it might be. And I go, if I don't understand the landscape, or even an environmental gold spot, it'd be great for us to have a dog in the environmental fight. I just don't know that. I don't know that game. Right. If I knew the game, I'd maybe come up with a concoction that'd make money for it. But I know the exploration space very well. So
stick with what you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Last question. I'm just a 25-year-old guy gaining mentorship from all these successful and hardworking people. So any advice you could give us 25-year-olds out there listening?
Just keep working hard. Keep working hard. If you want it bad enough, if you think about it at night when you go to bed, it's probably going to happen, and you're going to work for it, and it'll happen. Like it'll come together for you. It's just, it's all about just keeping persistent at it. And, if you want to do something, it's literally that easy. And, everybody used to say, like, if you want to do it, set your mind to it. It's like, but now in retrospect, like I take Newfoundland Gold, for example. This sounds ridiculous. I knew, like, I got in passionate arguments with Colin or discussions with Colin about that project, about Keystone, about things. And I would go to bed at night dreaming about pulling out meter after meter of core, of visible gold, and everybody being blown away. This was like probably in 2015 or 2016. I would go to bed at night and wake up in the morning and phone CJ and say, oh my God, I just had like a crazy, like, you're never going to believe this. And I don't know, but this is like insane, right? And he's like, oh, whatever. And then it like happens. And then, so our gold spot, you dream of what it could be and it becomes that. So I don't think it's that crazy where you're just like willing it upon yourself. But I think that if you have to, like athletes do this, they vision themselves reaching a goal or winning the medal or standing on the podium, and it pushes them to achieve more. And I think exactly the same in business. I think if you're 25, you've just come out of probably university, you're a little bit exhausted, you're searching for what you want to do because you've kind of got a timeline in your head of what you want to be by a certain age, or maybe you don't. But all I can say is like pick that target of what you want to be and what you want to do and like what you want to accomplish. And then just sort of don't lose sight of that, believe in it, and convince yourself that it's happening to you. It's like buying a lottery ticket. Sometimes you convince yourself you're going to win. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. And then you just kind of get motivated. I think then your hard work will lead you there.
Perfect. That was really well said. Thanks, Dennis. I like ending this with the guest closing off. So feel free to talk about GoldSpot or whatever you'd like to close off the podcast.
Well, thank you. Well, I think GoldSpot's a great buy opportunity. Hopefully everybody comes in and joins us. I believe we're going to be building something massive. The next mining 2.0, everything technology related with mining, I think will be part of GoldSpot. So that's really exciting to me. We've been a part of some dramatically awesome discoveries and tremendously awesome discoveries like Newfoundland Gold. So that's really, really super fun. And I think there's a lot more to come. Golden Planet's really exciting, and that's our own thing that we've launched. And I think that'll be a big headline maker in the next year or two to come. And hopefully everybody joins us in GoldSpot. There's really not much downside.
Perfect. Thanks, Dennis. Thank you for
Thanks.
taking the time to talk to me.
Take care. Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.
Disclaimer: the Wealth Holders podcast is for entertainment purposes only, not financial advice. We might hold investments in some featured companies. Always do proper due diligence and speak to a professional before investing. We take no responsibility in the performance of your investments. Past success does not indicate future performance.